Well, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope your day was great. As you see, the title of this video is Failing at Retirement, which I have done. And I think that telling my story will help a lot of people who may feel that they have failed at retirement. And most of the time, it is not your fault. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened to me, why I made the decision to retire in the first place. Initially, my goal was to work until I was 70 years old, which I will be next Wednesday, 1 week from today. Um, and I had goals. Um, Initially, I was going to work until I was 70, as I said. I had been told by my beautiful co-worker who was already 66. She said, Cheryl, if you work to 66 and a half, you can collect your Social Security and make all the money you want. I was like, what? She said, yes, that's what I do. She says, I work here full time and I get my Social Security. And I was like, wow. So that was my goal. I was going to work until I reached that age where I could make as much money as the limit was. There were some limits depending upon uh, the age and that, and you can go to Social Security website and look that up. But anyway, that was my goal. I knew there was a big difference in the Social Security payment. In my case, it was $500 difference between 66 and a half for retirement and age 70. So I wanted to stay until I was age 70. But my department got so stressful that I needed to leave. I did not want to leave, I needed to leave. And let me tell you why. My immediate supervisor decided she was going to retire. Um, and initially, I had gotten this job. I was in between jobs. I had actually walked off of my dream job. And I'm going to tell you about that in another video. Yes, it was my dream job until it wasn't. And I never walk off a job. I have been faithful to every job I've had. And the only reason I was not there was because I got laid off or something like that, but not because I walked off the job. So, anyway, I was in between jobs. My sister called me because she worked for this company. And she said, Cheryl, they've got a part time receptionist job if you want to apply for it. So I did. I applied for the job. They did not hire me initially. They called me and told me they had chosen another candidate. And so I said, fine. I was very comfortable working at home and trying to, get my little thing together because I liked being at home. I'm a hard worker, but I liked being at home working. So anyway, 2 days later, they called me back and they said, uh, the person that we chose to hire for this job has decided that she's going to take an offer somewhere else. And so, would you accept the job? So I did. I went in, I was at the receptionist desk um, for a while, a short while, really, because the worker that, I'm sorry, guys, the girl who was training me, or lady who was training me, kept saying, Cheryl, don't you want to work full time? Don't you want benefits? Don't you want vacation? Yeah. And you know what? All that stuff really was not a concern of mine. Um, she was insurance. I didn't need health insurance. I was covered by my husband's. And so that was not a concern of mine. And so then, as she said, they've got a job opening in this department. And she said, we won't tell you about a job opening in a department that's not good, but this one is good. So I thought, oh boy, maybe I'll apply for it. So anyway, this is how I ended up in this department. My immediate supervisor retired, and they hired this woman in her place. She was a lot younger. And when she came in, she started making a lot of changes. Um, we had one other younger person in our department, and then she hired a person from another department to be a part of ours. The bad thing about this was all three of them were very good friends. So, to make a long story short, they actually began to take over the department um, under the direction of their good friend. Things got very stressful. They got very hard. They treated the other woman and myself like, we were nobody. We were older, but it wasn't like we were nobody. We had been running that department, the two of us, for 12 years. So I was just enduring. It was just enduring. But it was getting very, very hard because things were happening every day. Some things I reported, the big boss did address them, but they were not happy. So, anyway, I one day went down to the kitchen to get some ice to put in my drink. And when I got in the kitchen, my previous manager, who I had been under when I started as a receptionist, was in the kitchen. And she said, "Oh, Cheryl, I'm working on this big project." She said, "But after that, I'm going to retire next June." Now, this was February. And so I said to her, "Oh," I said, "well, I'll be gone before you." I said, "Keep it under your hat." I said, "But I am retiring in January." My sister and I had been to all the retirement meetings. We knew our figures, and so the two of us were going to retire in January. We were going to throw this big party and all that. But it just got too stressful. So this was on a Monday when this manager told me that she was going to retire that next June. That Friday, I'm going down the hall, I'm getting ready, I'm going to lunch, I'm walking. She comes running, Cheryl, I was looking for you at your. I said, "Oh, what's going on?" She said, "I wanted to come and tell you that I've turned in my 2 weeks' notice." What? Didn't you just tell me on Monday that you were going to retire the following June? And now you're telling me that you have turned in your 2 weeks' notice. Now, people, let me tell you, I was in such shock after she told me that. I got in my car. I'm going to lunch, right? I called my sister, who is in another location with the same company, and I'm telling her what's going on. All of a sudden, I look up and I start laughing. I said, "Oh my God." I said, "You will not believe what I'm doing." My sister said, "What's going on?" I said, "I am going in the opposite direction and I am driving myself home." I was halfway home. Do you hear me? And I should have been going the other way. My sister couldn't stop laughing. She said, "What?" I said, "Girl, let me turn this car around and get to where I'm going." I was just going to run up to Walgreens and get some yogurt and some nuts, just some little stuff to snack on. It's time to go. So when I got back to the office, I saw this person in the hallway. And I said, "You will not believe what I just did." She said, "Come on in my office. Come on in. We're going to go in there and close the door." We went into her office and I told her what I did. And she looked at me and she said, "Cheryl, that's a sign." She said, "You need to get out of here." She said, "The next time I see you, I want you to tell me that you have turned in your 2 weeks' notice." And then she said to me, "I don't know how you work with those people. I don't know how you do it every day." Now, I was working under these difficult circumstances, but I was not really aware that it was evident that everybody else knew about it until I decided to retire. I had gone to, uh, the meetings and everything. I knew what my figures were. I knew I was going to be a little short. And so I called my husband and I said, babe, this is what he says. If you got it all figured out, go ahead and retire. So the next day I went in, I filled out my paperwork, I went down to HR, and then I went up to my boss, the boss over my supervisor. And I said to him, I said, I just wanted to come in and let you know that I will be leaving in 2 weeks. He looked at me and he said, leaving? He said, where are you going? I said, I'm retiring. He looked at me and he said, oh my God, no, Cheryl. He started crying. This man had tears coming out. He said, please, let's just change the subject. He said, let's not, right now, let's change the subject. So we did. I asked him not to tell anyone, uh, but of course he had to tell my manager, but they were to keep it between them. So I'm going down the hall one day and this girl comes up and says, oh, Cheryl, I heard you were retiring. I said, I said, where did you hear that? She said, oh, I heard your boss on the phone. She was telling somebody else. I said, oh my God. So all these things made me make the decision to leave. The thing that put the icing on the cake, so to speak, was my mother was dying of cancer. I had taken some leave, some family leave time, so that my two sisters and I could care for her. Um, when I got back, it was time for our annual evaluation. We had a review every year. So my immediate supervisor and the boss over her and myself were all in the conference room. She says to me, I want to address the fact that your numbers are down from anyone else. Before I could say anything, the big boss says, wait a minute, she hasn't even been here. This kind of stuff I'm dealing with. I didn't even have to say anything. He had sense enough to know my numbers would be down if I had not been there. And so after that kind of did it for me. I was like, okay, this is crazy. I'm leaving. So I retired. I had everything figured out. Um, I knew that I was going to be short about $500 a month because I had taken the earlier choice rather than staying until I was 70. I would get a pension, and I would get my Social Security. So I leased my car, and my note was about $500. Okay, my lease was going to be up. Excuse me, the latter part of that year, and so I said, okay, when my lease is up, that will, fill in that gap, and then it's okay. So I retire. I'm at home. I'm doing some things. I do some reselling and other little side hustles that I do. I've always had a side hustle since I was very, very, very young. And so my husband, my lease was up. My husband took my car in on a Monday. And we were going to, okay, we had 3 cars. We had a little Mercedes little sports car that we didn't drive that much. It needed some work on it. It was basically in the garage. And I had my Toyota, which I leased. And then my husband had his car. So we turned the Toyota in on Monday. He goes into the dealership and takes care of all that. On Tuesday, in the one car that we're going to share, he goes out to get lunch. Somebody rear ends him and totals the car. Totals the one car that we're going to share. So we had to turn right around and go back to the dealer and buy a car. Oh, and I forgot to say, right after I retired, COVID hit. That same year, at the end of the year, COVID, that put a monkey wrench in everything. And I'm not done telling you everything that happened. We go right back to the dealership and we have to buy a car. Now, I knew there was a possibility that I may have to get a part time job at some point. And so I had registered on Indeed way before I retired and just put in, the category secretarial, clerical, receptionist, part time. And so that was in place. And they were sending me jobs periodically, but, I didn't need them. I was just flicking them off, reading them and kind of flicking them off. So now we have a car payment again. We're in the middle of COVID, and we sell antiques. My husband had been doing it for like 9 years, and then right before I was going to retire, I started doing antiques, jewelry. We had uh, 4 rental spaces in the antique mall that is right down the street from our house. I mean, 60 seconds away, we could be there. It was perfect. COVID hit, and the county shut down the mall. It shut down the mall as a non essential business. Okay. And they were doing that, if you know anything about that, especially here in St. Louis. I don't know what was going on in other places. I didn't keep up with that, but here, our St. Louis County shut the mall down. All of our inventory was locked up in the mall. We could not get it. And so we couldn't sell it. Income going down, 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 down. After about 4 months, the mall reopened. Now we're still at the height of COVID. They wanted all of the back rent from when the county shut them down to present. Okay. Now, I'm paranoid because I'm thinking, okay, I got to go in here and wipe this stuff down. I don't know who touched it. I don't know if they sneezed on it. I don't know if they coughed on it. There was a lot about COVID we didn't know. And so I thought, I'm out. So we were able to, my son was helping me a lot then because my husband basically had come out of there. Um, and so my son and I were in there. And so we were able to sell off like our tall display cabinets. Some of the other vendors bought them. Um, we had a sale in there and got rid of a lot of things. And then a lot of things we had to bring home and store. And then we had a storage unit. My son took some stuff to his house. It was just a mess. So that was not working. So now here, what am I going to do? I had to get a job. So this one job kept flashing up from Indeed. It kept looking. So one day I decided to click on it. I looked at it, and it was literally 3 minutes up the street from my house. It was a receptionist job, which is not the right term because I basically do everything. Okay, when I say everything, no, that was not the right title. Not at all. But it was 3 minutes up the street. I didn't have to travel. And I thought, okay, let me apply for this job. And so I'm telling you this because even though you may have everything all planned out for your retirement, and you think you got it, just, it's going to be smooth sailing, there can be some hiccups in there, and you have to make some adjustments. I thought I would be at home making a pot of coffee, reading a book, watering my plants, you know, taking care of my home, cooking a meal, uh, eh, working on my hobbies, the things that I like to do, my resale. I had to get a job. I had to get a job. So I applied for this job, and I just want to tell you this because I don't necessarily want to go to work, but the job was truly sent to me. It was definitely a blessing. And I went in to apply for the job. No, let me back up a little bit because this is kind of hilarious. I went online and I applied for the job. As I finished the application for the job, it sent me straight into a test. Okay. I'm taking the test, I'm going along, I'm moving and grooving. And I get to this part that I don't know what it was. It was multiple choice, but it was like, it wasn't algebra because I took algebra. I did good in algebra. Trigonometry or something, I don't know what it was. I could not figure it out. And I have two sons that are geniuses in math. Um, and so the youngest one came over. He says, "Oh, mom, let me look at it." And we were going through it and figured. And finally, I said, "You know what? Forget it." I said, "I am not trying to be a rocket scientist. All I'm trying to do is go and sit at this desk and be what I thought, a receptionist." I shut it down. Mhm. I sure did. I shut it down. I said, I'll find something else. Well, I got a phone call. And the lady says, "Hi, I'm so and so from blah, blah, blah. And we got your application. And we'd like for you to come in for the interview." What? Huh? Let me tell you a little bit about the job. And she starts explaining all this stuff to me. "Can you come in tomorrow?" No, I couldn't come in tomorrow. And so I thought, okay, this was like Wednesday. I said, "What about Friday?" I figured Friday everybody would kind of be relaxed. They want to go home for the weekend. Maybe they won't look into this so detailed and strenuous. And so we set it up for that Friday. I went in, my husband took me, and he said, "I'm going to wait on you." I said, "Oh, no, babe." I said, "Go back home." Like I said, we're 3 minutes up the road. I said, "You go back home." I said, "Because sometimes you never know how long these interviews will last." So he said, "Okay." So I went in, I had my interview, I talked to the manager, and then he called another manager in and introduced me to him. And then he said a little bit about, he looked over my resume and everything like that. And he says, I say yes. I'm going, what? He says, okay. He walked up and he said, the manager says, "I think you're the perfect person for this job and we'd like to offer you the job." I said, okay. He says, "Now you'll be getting an email from the company. They're going to set up your drug test and they're going to do blah, blah, blah." He tells all these details. So I'm done. I know it was under 10 minutes. I called my husband. I said, "Babe, can you come and get me?" And he said, "Come and get you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm all done." He says, "What?" He said, "What happened?" I said, "I'll tell you when you get here." I didn't tell him over the phone. So he pulls up to pick me up. I get in the car and I say, he said, "What happened?" I said, they hired me on the spot. That's what happened. And they were ready for me to report to work like 2 days later. And something happened where the manager that needed to sign off on my pay amount was gonna be was not gonna be there that day or something. Anyway, I ended up starting that following Monday. Not that Monday, because I went in on a Friday. I think I started that Thursday. I think I started that Thursday, yeah. And this was a part-time job, but I was working 30 plus hours. So it was really it as a matter of fact, it was 32 hours because it was one day or 8 hours short of being full time. Yes. Yes. So, anyway, I am still there. I've been there 4 years. It was very challenging for me to go back to work. Not only going back to work, that, like I said, I'm a very hard worker. I don't mind working, but it was in the midst of COVID. And so here I had to go to a job and wear a mask the whole time I was there. I didn't know if I was good. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was, but all that's behind us. And so I am still there. There are a lot of perks and benefits to this job. One of them is I work by myself. Now, when I say by myself, I work with a lot of people, but I am in the center of the room by myself, okay? There are no co-workers sitting around me. I'm in the front of the building. I have full glass. I can see out. No one micromanages me. Um, and so for that part, it is very, very good. It is a blessing. Sometimes I'm tired because I have other things that I do before I go to work. And so I'm a very, very busy person. But as I mentioned, next week I will be 70 years old. And it is a blessing that I am still able to function, that I have a clear mind, that I have no serious health problems, that I can get up and go. Yes, I am dealing with high blood pressure, or I take a high blood pressure medication, but my blood pressure is very good. And I am dealing with the after effects of the um, shingles and the postherpetic neuralgia, which I have made videos of. But for the most part, I can pretty much do everything that I need to do. So if you are like me, if you have retired, if you are struggling, think about some things that you can do. I know a lot of you know you can get a part time job, but that might not be what you want to do. You might want to do something else. You might want to get a little side hustle, you know, where you can be at home and be comfortable. Right now, my situation wouldn't let me do that with having to go and buy another car, with having to leave the antique mall after it being shut down for 4 months. Uh, we live in what is called a luxury townhome. We have 3 levels. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful, but it is since we've been here, the rent has increased $200 a month. Okay, so with all of that, utilities and whatever, it's not easy. And you can do all the planning in the world and think that you've got it all figured out. But as you can see from my experience, I did not have it. I thought I had it figured out, but it just did not happen that way. And another blessing of mine was, I'm going to say this really quick and then I'll get off. Um, when I found out that you could work and get your Social Security once you became eligible at 62, I went to the Social Security office to apply for my Social Security. But after they looked over my numbers, the representative said, Cheryl, you make too much money to get a lot of Social Security. He said, you're only going to get about $2,500 extra a year. He said, and you won't get that until around October. And so I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I tell you what, let's just leave it be. I won't apply. And I'll do it. Now, I was 63, I think, when I went to the Social Security office. And so I'm leaving the office. I call my girlfriend on the phone. We're talking. And I said, oh, I just left the Social Security office and blah, blah, blah. I said, but they told me I'll only get like 2,500. She said, what? She said, do you know how many people would love to get a $2,500 extra a year? When she said it like that, I was like, wait a minute. I could invest that. I could buy inventory for my little side hustle stores. And so I decided to go back. I went online and I started applying for my Social Security. But because I've been in the office and told them I didn't want to apply for it, it flagged it, and it said, okay, since you had said you don't want it, we need you to come into the office. We won't approve this online because we want to make sure that it's actually you. And so I did. I went into the office. I went ahead and applied for my Social Security. Um, and I knew it would be about another year before I would get anything. But I applied for it anyway. Because at this point, I had not decided I was going to retire. And so anyway, when I retired, after I turned my paperwork and everything in, I called Social Security and told them that my status was going to change and that I would be retiring from my job. And so the girl, I said, so I need to make an appointment to come in. The girl says, oh, no, you don't need to come in. She said, tell me how much you've made so far this year. I gave her the figure. That was February. Or was it the middle of March? I retired in March. I think it was. So it may have been the beginning of March or whatever. So anyway, I told her how much I made and everything. She says, okay. She says, all right, Miss Harper, we'll go ahead and get this processed. We'll change your status. She says, and she told me when I would get my first check. She says, and in addition, you'll get back pay of all the money that they held up until the time you retire. I was like, what? Because I didn't even think about that. But that was a nice hunk of money to see in my bank account after I retired. So, anyway, guys, if you're retired and you're struggling, hang in there. If you don't know that you can get Social Security and work at the same time, look into it because you can. And once you reach that 66 and a half mark or 67, whatever it is, based on your birth date, you can make all the money you want and still get a Social Security check. So, and the Social Security Administration will send you a letter because I got my letter last year. I think it was last year or year before, one of them. Yeah. That told me that I could make as much money as I want to still get my Social Security rather. So I hope this video has been helpful for you guys, and I'm going to put out another video on how we can save money. We especially need to know that since we are retired. I don't even consider myself retired. I say I'm retired, but all the work I do between my so-called part-time job and my side hustles, I'm really not retired, only according to Social Security. All right, guys. So you have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is when you see this video. And I'll see you in my next one. All right, you guys have a wonderful night. Bye bye.